John Nord. I'm going to show you today how I make my rowels and prepare them to put in a spur. I start with a 5/32 cold roll steel, and I have a brass pattern of the rowel I'm making here. It's a 24 point, 1.5 inch for the Marfa shank, and this will eventually have inlaid silver in it. I printed off a pattern of my rowel, and in this case I just glued it to the steel, and I'm going to try cutting it out that way. That works pretty good. Another way you can do it is to paint this with the blue and then put your pattern on here and scribe around it. But with all these little points, I'm hoping this glued on pattern will work better. And we'll eventually have a 3/16 hole here in the middle. And I'll cut these out on the bandsaw. I won't show the whole process because it's pretty time consuming, but with all these points. But once I do get them cut out, we'll take it and we'll finish it up on the belt sander, and then take my rotary tool and a file and start cleaning all the points up and getting it just right. You want to wind up with about an 1/8 inch thick one. I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I'm cutting it down right outside of the points all the way around, and then I'm cutting slices this way, and in a minute I'll come back and cut slices that way. That'll start making the V's between all the points. Okay, you can see here that the rowel is starting to take shape. It looks like a gear tooth almost. And when I get this all cut out around, I'll go back and I'll start filing those teeth down to the right dimensions to make them look all the same. So I'm going to continue with this process. When I get them cut out, I'll show you what they look like. Okay, I've got them both cut out. You can see with the saw teeth on them and all. And now I'm going to center punch them. The pattern was kind of messed up on this other side, so I went ahead and put my brass pattern on top, marked a new hole. I'm going to center punch them right here. Now we'll take them over, we'll drill an 1/8 inch hole through them, and then we'll drill a 3/16 hole through them. Anyway, we have both of our holes drilled in the rowels. Now all it is to clean them up, file them down, and sand them good. Then we'll inlay the silver, and then we can put them in the spurs when the spurs are ready. Okay, now we're back in the studio, and we're going to file these rowels. I wanted to show you my simple holder I made. It's just a piece of 3/16 steel that I cut a foot on. I'll show it to you here. It's got a little foot on it out here with a hole in it, and I put a spur rivet through it and hard soldered it in, and then I cut that rivet off just above the surface of the rowel. And this will allow me to turn the rowel while I'm filing. This other piece of steel is like 1/4 inch, and I clamp it down and it holds the rowel in place while I file. Otherwise it might try to move back and forth. Earlier in the video when I cut these rowels out, you have to straighten up the teeth because the bandsaw, you can be a little off. So I take this triangular file and I just go between them like this, and I straighten all the teeth up and get them uniform before I file these bevels on them. Now I'm going to file the bevel, and I'm going to do it on one side of the teeth all the way around first, and then in a minute I'll turn this jig around and I'll file the other side of the teeth all the way around, and that'll complete that side. And I'm using a single cut, less aggressive file to do this with. These rowels are small teeth, and they don't require a whole lot of filing. Some of your 8-spoke, 6-spoke rowels, you have to get pretty aggressive with them to get them filed, and you use more aggressive files. And but these have just a short teeth on them, and they don't require a whole lot of filing. The big flat surface is going to be inlaid, and so that's why I'm not running no lines down off the teeth or anything. And I just turn it and start filing again. You can cut 6 or 7 teeth before you have to turn it. I just file in one direction, and I kind of put the peak of that file in the bottom of the notch to kind of give it a little bit of a definition. Okay, I'm going to turn this jig around so I can file the other side of the teeth. It's easier when you turn it around. It's obviously. I can show you it's got a bevel cut on the side of each tooth here. We're just going to loosen the vise up, flip it around to the other side, and tighten it back down, and then we can easily cut all the same direction and knock out the bevel on each side of those teeth. I don't have to keep switching it back and forth this way. This kind of shows you how each tooth now is getting a bevel on the side of them teeth, and the shiny part there shows the bevel. And now this is going to make for a pretty sharp rowel, so we're going to have to dull this rowel up. We don't want a sharp rowel in the spur. So in this next clip I'm going to coming up here, I'll show you how I'm going to dull them up. And here's a good look at the rowel finished up with the bevel on each side of the tooth. Looks much like a circular saw blade. Is I'm going to dull the points on the top of this rowel, and they wind up pretty sharp. Just the nature of the style of this rowel after you bevel them. So I'm going to put a good dull top on each point. This is a 180 grit disc, and it does the job pretty well. Then I'm going to go around all over, make sure I don't have any sharp areas, and then just go around the outside edges of them and take all the burrs off of them. Both sides, and then I'll get through with this. I'll test it out on my hand here and make sure there's not any sharp areas at all on these rowels. and just fill of it and go all over it real good. You don't want to have any sharp areas on it. Looks like this one's good. Next, I'm going to take a 400 grit disc on my rotary tool, and I'm just going to polish up the sides of this rowel. I'm eventually going to cut some channels in the sides of this rowel and inlay some silver in it. They're going to be blued, and the silver's really going to pop out on them. I just go all over them until I get them shined off pretty well. And then I'll get a piece of 600 grit sandpaper, and I'll finish them up on this on both sides. After this, I'm going to pick the spur up and going to put it in the groove and put a pin through there so you can see how it's going to be. These grooves came out really nice, and they fit the rowel real well. And you just want to put them in here, make sure they spin nice, make sure there's nothing interfering. That's all there is to it. Okay, that wraps up part 3 of the series, and in part 4, after I get these inlaid with the silver and the rowel inlaid and all that, we're going to show how I put the hangers into the spur, the swingers on, brad the buttons, and put the rowel in. So tune in to part 4 of the series. Thanks for watching.